We made a new pattern. We're calling it Delightful Donuts. It is so fun to make. I used crumb blocks on a lot of it, but you don't have to have crumb blocks. You can also use any solid color of fabric that you like at 6.5 inches. Crumb blocks do add interest. I also use neutrals. I like lots of different kinds of neutrals. So these are the smaller squares to do the center of the donut. So you take 4 neutrals that you like together, pin them into the center of the square, and you get it ready. For every donut, you need 4 sections. And here they are, all piled on my cookie sheet. The other thing we'll need are 5-inch squares of neutral, and those are also ready. So now I can sew them whenever I have time. I love making triangle corners. If you've never done this, stick around. One way is to mark a line and then kind of sew just barely on the corner side of that line. The other is to finger press a line if you don't want to draw a line, or you can actually press a line so that you know where to sew. You want to sew on the corner side. So there are 3 ways to do this, or you can do it the way I like to, which is, just wing it. I refuse to mark these little ones. They just don't need marked. I just sew from corner to corner, and close enough with this pattern is close enough. I promise. It may not match exactly, but your eye will make it work, and you don't have to be exact with this pattern. For me, I'm not going to mark any of these smaller ones except to show you how, because if you're a perfectionist and want them marked, I want you to be able to mark them. You can just cut off the triangles by cutting a 1/4 inch away, or you can do what I'm doing. This is just me sewing across so that I can get little half square triangle bonus half square triangles. I'm sewing about a 1/2 inch from the line that I was on, not quite, but close enough. I'll be able to cut between them and get my bonus half square triangles. These extra half square triangles are not part of the pattern, but if I'm going to save them, I prefer to take the time to sew them as I go, because I will never pull them out and sew them later. So it's just me saving random triangles that I never want to sew together. But if I sew them now, then I will have wonderful half square triangles to use in a project later. That's why I do it this way. As I organize this block to see how it's going to look, I love how it's starting. There's the center of the donut hole, and here I just press my triangles open. It's an extra project, it's an extra thing, it takes extra time, and it's just so happy. So there they are laying out. You can see that they're going to be great, and I'm just going to stack them up in this bin and have a zillion of them by the time I'm done. This next part is pretty straightforward. I have a couple of tips for you. We're just sewing it together like it's a 4-patch, but watch. I set it the same way so the donut side's down, and I press in the same direction. And that is so that the seam is going the same way. And as I flip it around, now they're going to budge perfectly because one is going one direction and the other is going the other direction. Just pay attention as you press, and it will make for simpler sewing, and it will help your block to lay flatter. See, it's not exact, but it works and it's beautiful. So here I want you to see how I streamline it. However many I want to handle at a time, maybe 20, 15, whatever your preference is. So I just sew and sew and sew until I think, okay, I'm ready to trim and do something else now. It just stays by my machine, and I do it as I have time. This is the extra part where I'm making my bonus triangles, and I just wanted you to see that I also streamline sew these. So if you leave the thread attached and you're doing a bunch at a time, they just set up and go through really simply, really quickly, really well. It's just a few more minutes of your time, and you have all those yummy, amazing bonus triangles that we'll be able to work with later. For me, there's something totally zen in being organized and having an organized, simple, quick way to do things. So here you see me piling them up into the 4s, and then I cut the little triangle off. And again, you could do this with your cutter. I just enjoy the scissors one that's the small ones like this. And then I pile up my little triangles in a pile there. So there's piles of both. I press my triangles open, and I do it streamlined, just one after another, and then I pick them up in their 4s and I put them in their wonderful box. Oh, look Look how gorgeous. And there's a few more to add to it. I'm going to do so many cute projects with these darling little triangles. After I get those ready, I just get my regular blocks for the real project I'm working on. And I press over the top of them because it just stabilizes and makes that corner stay down. So I press one after another, pile them up and line them up on the back of my ironing board. It's so beautiful. It's like I'm leaving the colors out to sing to me so I can see them. And then I get them ready in their 4 patches, and I just line them up so they're side by side, all the triangle parts up. I lay them together so I see what I like next to what. Is that better? It is to me. And then I pile them up. And as I get everything ready, again, this is my streamlined process. I do it with all of the blocks because now all of the blocks have their small triangles. So I prep them, get them ready. I put them on the tray and they are going to be sewn as I have time. This is a great stopping place if I need to stop, or I just keep sewing. When I laid them out, the triangles were at the top, but as I sew them, I put the triangles at the bottom. I just think it sews better, just feels like it does. I know it really could be sewn either way, but that's why I do it, because then I'm going straight ahead until I get to the seam, flip myself right over the seam and keep going. And then again, pressing it the way they're both the same direction so that as I flip it around, they'll be able to budge together. Here is the block so far. It always feels like I'm halfway done. See how the triangles really aren't exact, but they look great. Here's my whole pile. They're ready to go. And now we get to do the next step. It's time to use our big neutral blocks. And this is me being a randomizer. I just pick them up because I have so many different ones, and I'm putting one of each kind on the pile. And I want that so that as I stack them up, they're randomized for me and I don't have to worry about getting 2 of the same one right together. And sometimes I'll sort through and pick one I want, but they're still randomized. I pin them where I want them because my point of doing this is I'm making sure that all of my neutrals on the corners are different than my neutrals on the inside. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to be so particular. It's just that I am particular, so I'm being particular. So after I pin them and get them all ready to go, then I'm ready for the next step. Now it's time to mark, and I do mark these bigger neutrals because I'm a chicken heart to just wing it. I wish I dared wing it, but I happen to know I will get them crooked. So if you dare wing it, all the more power to you. Me, I mark them, and I mark them all. This is a water-soluble pen, and it comes right off. So after they're all marked, I sew them one after another. And it works best for me to sew them and trade back and forth between a couple of blocks until all 4 corners are sewn together. Now, some people might say, why didn't you sew these before you sewed them into the 4 patches? You could if you prefer it. I just want to control the color of the neutrals on each block, and so I prefer to do it the way I'm doing it here. Right now, I'm doing the bonus triangles. These are my favorite, and they're so wonderful that we're planning to do a video in the future to show you all the amazing baby quilts I make with these bonus triangles that I'm making from this quilt here. So watch for that in the future. The last step, of course, is cutting the triangles off and pressing this quilt block, and there it is, beautiful donut quilt block. Fun fact, this one gets booted out of the quilt. I just decided I didn't want it. And so it's great. I used it and made a baby quilt out of it, but it isn't a pure enough color for the quilt. Here I'm pressing my half square triangles, and I am telling you, these make my heart sing. It is so worth taking the extra time to sew that extra seam and get your half square triangle bonuses out of this pattern. Before we show you the whole quilt at once, be sure to notice how we have regular donuts made of solid fabric mixed in with the crumb donuts made of various multiple fabrics. See how it really doesn't matter how you put the corners? They're close enough is close enough. Your eye just makes it blend and look beautiful. Also, we have a pattern in our shop, and it's a queen size. It has smaller sizes included in the pattern in case you want to check that out. Here it is in its glorious full beauty. You can make one too. Stay merry and creative.